Today we're talking about 7 things that every reptile keeper could really benefit from. So these aren't really necessities, but they are things that'll make you a lot more efficient when caring for your animals, and they'll just come in really handy, and I think they're all worth the investment. I've seen quite a few of these videos, but they're kind of all the same. They're usually just like paper towel, a snake hook, and a spray bottle. But I don't know, I kind of feel like all those things are pretty obvious, that you're kind of going to find in any care guide anyway. But these are 7 things that I found really useful for myself that I've been using over the past few months or a few years that have really helped me out. So let's get started. Firstly, this is something that I haven't had for very long. Quite a few people recommended that I get this, so I did end up getting one, and it's an infrared thermometer. I don't think really the brand you get matters, but I got Etekcity. This is the Lasergrip 1080. And basically what it does is, without having to touch anything, you can just pull a trigger and point it at anything, and it tells you the exact temperature in Fahrenheit or Celsius. For example, this table is 74.9 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's really accurate and really specific. I think it's mainly made for like food, so if you're cooking and you need to make sure the turkey is the right temperature or something, you can check. But you can use it to really just check hot spots and cool spots, heat pad temperatures, but pretty much any surface that you need to know the temperature of, you can just stick it in the enclosure and test it out. Just keep in mind you can't use it through glass, so just make sure you do it like through the top or open it up and do it. But it has come in really handy to immediately know any temperatures that I need. I used to just use these like cheap little gauges from companies, and they work for the most part, but it just takes a while and it's kind of just a pain. So this is much easier. It's like 20 to 40 bucks depending on where you look. I got this on Amazon, and it's something that I've been using daily, so it was definitely worth the money. All the stuff I'm talking about will be linked in the description if you do want to get the stuff. But next I'm going to talk about a tropical mist. And this is basically a humidifying spray. This one's made by Zilla. I don't know if anyone else makes it, but I've been using this one for a few years and it's been working really well. Basically all it does is you can just spray it on any surface, and I believe you can even spray it on the animal if they're like stuck in shed. And the primary source is to bring the humidity up in an enclosure, but it also contains some different vitamins and minerals to actually help your animal. You might be wondering, why can't you just use some sort of spray bottle with water to bring the humidity up in the enclosure? And you usually can with most animals, but I realized, well, there's 2 benefits to this. The first being the different vitamins it has, and secondly, it can bring the humidity up without dampening the enclosure. For example, box turtles, like mine right there, they need humidity on the bit higher side, but you don't want their soil or substrate to be all damp, because that can cause like shell rot and other things, and it might just make them uncomfortable because they're not supposed to be in sort of like damp environments. This, however, can bring that humidity up, but at the same time it doesn't make the enclosure all damp and uncomfortable for the animal if that's not what they're made to be in. Just a warning, it smells really weird and it's a pretty strong smell, so I don't know, I kind of got used to it, but it can be a little bit annoying and it is pretty strong if you use it a lot. Next, I'm talking about something you don't actually have to buy, you can just make, and that is a schedule for your animals. I found that it's really useful. Quite a few people use schedules if they have more than just a couple animals, and it really is useful even if you do just have 1 or 2. What I've done here is just made a little weekly chart with everything that each animal needs each week, because usually at night when I'm like about to go to sleep, I would be worried that like maybe I forgot to do something with one of the animals, maybe I forgot to replace a water or feed someone. But because I have this already laid out, it lets me know everything I do and don't need to do for that day. Of course you can make it however you want, but it has come in really handy, and I think a lot more people should just set up some sort of weekly or monthly schedule for their animals so that they don't forget certain things that need to be done. I actually have a reptile checklist that I made a while back, which you can find at GoHerping.com/careguides, and I have a little built-in schedule that you can just use on there. It also keeps track of your temperature and humidity needs for your animals, so if you want you can print that out and use that, or you can just make one yourself and print it out, or just write it in hand. Next up, we've got Repti-Safe. This is something I've talked about a lot in a lot of care videos, but I want to talk about it again because it is such an easy, useful thing. As you might know, there's always a risk when using tap water with reptiles because it contains chlorine. Not very big amounts that are gonna harm us or anything, but like I've said before, reptiles are more sensitive to it. That's when Repti-Safe comes in really handy, because although there is more than one way to remove the dangerous things in tap water. Repti-Safe I found is just really the easiest. Of course, it's not free, it's not too expensive. I used to get them in this little bottle, but I ended up getting just the large container, and then I refill this bottle since I have, well, one, a turtle that needs like 30 gallons of water. This is made by ZooMed, and all it is are some little drops that you can put in the water. What I do is I just fill up some gallon jugs with water and then put 32 of these drops, which is what is required for 1 gallon of water. So according to it, it just does everything immediately. It removes all the stuff. I think it adds a couple things, and it is a lot more useful than having to wait for your water to like distill itself or getting reverse osmosis water or all sorts of other things that you can do. This to me is just the easiest, even though it's not free. Next up, the fourth thing would be a pack of gloves. These are just latex gloves. You can get them by like the 100 or something. And I found these come in really handy for one, cleaning enclosures, and two, feeding the snakes. Because when you thaw out mice and rats, they don't really smell themselves, but they can stink up your hands if you're holding them and then feeding them to your animal, and it can be more difficult to make sure you remove all of the germs and bacteria from your hands if there have been any on those mice or rats. So just putting on a pair of these, since they are disposable, you can just put them on, feed all the animals, and take them off. So then afterwards your hands don't smell like rat, and so there's a lot less bacteria that you need to try and wash off. I also use these when I go around to clean all the enclosures. I just keep a pair on so I can just grab all of the poop by hand. It's a lot quicker and a lot cleaner and safer for me. The next two things are relating to the lighting and heating of your enclosures, basically anything that needs electricity. I don't want to have to disconnect them from all my setup stuff because that would just be kind of a mess. But the first thing is a Reptile timer. If you get one of these, it doesn't need to say Reptile on it. I just did because it's from a more trusted brand and it's basically set up and ready for Reptile use. So I'm sure a lot of you know of these, but basically what it does is turn things on and off at certain times. You can set which times you want something to be on and which times off. So I actually use it for all of the lighting and then a couple other things like filters. And it's a way to keep everything really accurate. Of course, you can just wake up and turn on all your lights and stuff, and then at night turn them all off. But that can take a while if you do have more than just a couple animals. And on top of that, if you're gone for maybe a few days, it can just keep that cycle going without you having to like invite someone over to turn the lights on and off twice a day. This can also work really well if you have something like a fogger and maybe you want it to only be on like every other half hour or something. You can just press it in the little buttons with the one that I'm using and have it come on and off every half hour so it's not constantly on or constantly off without you having to do anything. This is I think like $20 to $30 and I've been using the same one for over a year now and it's been really useful and I definitely recommend you buying one of those. And the final one is something that I'm sure quite a few use, but many people don't know about, and that is an actual Reptile thermostat. What this is just something that you plug into the wall, and then you plug a heat source into the actual thermostat. You put a little probe that goes into the enclosure somewhere, and it keeps track of the temperature right there. Say you want to keep your ball python enclosure at 90 degrees, but you can't find a bulb that like perfectly stays at 90 degrees. Would you get out of the way? Simply because it's just going to keep letting off energy and keep letting off heat, and it also depends on like the temperature of your room and everything. But what you can do is plug this into the thermostat, and then whenever it reaches 90 degrees it'll turn off, and then when it goes below 90 degrees it can turn back on. So you don't want to use this with a light because it'll probably be like constantly turning on and off, but you can use it for heat pads and ceramic bulbs and things like that that just let off heat. I think these are a lot more popular in Europe because a lot of European reptile people are the ones that have been telling me to start using these. And I've gotten 3 of them so far. Really only 3 of my enclosures need it. I'm able to manage the rest without, but they have been coming in really handy and they should be more popular because it's such a simple thing. The only problem is they are a bit on the expensive side. They're about $20 to $30 each. So if you do have multiple animals, that can add up and be pretty expensive because each one does need its own thermostat. If you have a rack or something, you could probably use like one for all of them, but because enclosures will be set up differently and be in different parts of your room and be different sizes, you'll have to get them individually. If you do just have a couple animals or you do want to make the investment, I definitely think you should because they are really helpful. So those are the 7 items that I think every reptile keeper could really benefit from and really use with their animals. If you think I forgot anything important on this list, make sure to let me and others know in the comments. But that'll be it for me for this video. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.